Mercedes, do you need help with the calculation? Mercedes, do you need help with the chemistry project? Mercedes, do you need help with the mathematics project? Mercedes, book. Look where all those books have landed you now. An ordinary construction site worker looking for urgent 2K. The cruel laughter echoed through the dirty construction site as Mercedes Adeleke held up her phone, recording every moment of what she believed was her ultimate triumph. But this story doesn't begin here. Nah. In this moment of humiliation, it began years earlier in a small cramped room where a girl named Grace was about to change her destiny with nothing but determination. In a flickering kerosene lamp, Grace Okoro's alarm was the sound of her mother's voice calling from the tiny kitchen of their one-room apartment in Mushin. Grace, wake up, my daughter. You don't want to be late for school. The morning routine was always the same. Grace would heat water for everyone's bath using the small kerosene stove, help her mother prepare a simple breakfast of bread and tea, and ensure her younger siblings were ready for their own schools. Her father, Mr. Okoro, had already left for his job at the mechanic workshop, where he fixed old cars and motorcycles for barely enough money to keep food on their table. Grace, remember to collect money from Mrs. Aduni for the tomatoes I sold to her yesterday, her mother called. As she arranged oranges in a large basin, Mrs. Okoro sold whatever fruits were in season: oranges in December, mangoes in April, watermelons in dry season. She would wake up as early as 4 a.m., get to the fruit market, buy her goods, and spend the entire day under the scorching Lagos sun, hoping to make enough profits to contribute to her children's school fees. At 15, Grace understood that education was her family's only hope of escaping poverty. Every naira her parents spent on school fees was sacrificed, money that could have bought more food, better clothes, or basic comforts. But her parents had made their choice. Their children would have opportunities they never had. And then there was Mercedes. Mercedes Adeleke stepped out of a gleaming black SUV like a queen, greeting her subjects. At 15, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never been told no or "we can't afford it." Her school uniform was custom tailored, her shoes were the latest design, and gold bangles jingled on her wrist. Jewelry worth more than Grace's family's annual income. "Mercedes, don't forget your phone," called her personal maid, running after her with an iPhone. "Just keep it, Auntie Sewa." Mercedes waved dismissively. "Daddy said he's getting me the newest model this weekend anyways. This one is getting boring." Grace watched this interaction with fascination. She had never even owned a phone. "Good morning, class," announced their mathematics teacher. "I hope everyone completed their assignments. Grace, please come and solve question number 5 on the board." Grace stood up confidently. She had spent an hour the previous night working on this problem. "Excellent work, Grace," the teacher beamed. "As usual, perfect solution. Now, Mercedes, can you show us how you solve question number 3? Mercedes looked up from her compact mirror, where she had been checking for her lip gloss. "Question what?" "The assignment, Mercedes. Question number 3. "Oh, that." Mercedes shrugged. "I didn't even do it. I was busy with other things." The teacher's face froze. "Mercedes, this is the 3rd time this week. Your education is important. You cannot continue like this." Mercedes examined her perfectly manicured nails with boredom. "Mr. Adebayo, my father owns 3 companies. He has friends in Abuja, friends in America, friends everywhere important. Why should I stress myself with mathematics when I already have everything I need?" The classroom felt silent. Some students looked uncomfortable. Others seemed impressed by Mercedes's boldness. As weeks turned into months, a clear pattern emerged at St. Mary's Secondary School. Grace excelled in every subject: mathematics, English, chemistry, physics, biology. Her essays were read aloud as examples for other students. Her science experiments were always successful because she prepared thoroughly. Her presentations were engaging because she genuinely understood and loved the material she was studying. Meanwhile, Mercedes failed test after test, assignment after assignment, but there was no real consequences. Mercedes, you failed this test again. You scored 15 in chemistry, Mrs. Ikoku announced during one particular painful result sections. This is unacceptable. You will need to repeat this class if you don't improve. But before the week was over, Chief Adeleke visited the school. He brought with him architectural plans for a new science laboratory he intended to fund, along with promises of new equipment and facilities. Mysteriously, Mercedes' failing grades was quietly changed to pass, and she moved on to the next topic without mastering the previous one. Grace became more determined. If Mercedes could succeed without efforts because of her father's wealth, then Grace would succeed through her own efforts and make her own wealth. If Mercedes had connection, then Grace would build her own foundation on knowledge and skills that no one could take away from her. During lunch breaks, while Mercedes and her wealthy friends discussed parties and shopping trips, Grace would sit under the mango tree with students that shared her hunger for learning. They would solve extra mathematics problems, debate literature, and discuss current affairs. Grace enjoyed every bit of these conversations. Mercedes was struggling visibly with her chemistry assignment. She had been staring at the same page for over 20 minutes, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming impatiently on the desk. Grace could see the frustration building in Mercedes' expression. "Mercedes," Grace said quietly, "I notice you are having trouble with the chemistry assignment. Would you like me to explain it to you? It's not really that complicated once you understand the basic principle." Mercedes looked up at Grace with an expression of complete surprise. "Help me?" Mercedes looked Grace up and down. "Do you see this?" She gestured to her expensive jewelries and designer accessories. "My father has connections in government, in business, everywhere that matters. I don't need help from someone like you." "I can help you with the chemistry assignment," Grace repeated. Mercedes rolled her eyes dramatically. "Please, Grace, spare me the lecture. Daddy always says that education is for people who don't have options. I have options. I have money. I have power and connections. What more could I possibly need, especially from someone like you?" With that, Mercedes left and walked away. Grace didn't give up. Time after time, when she saw Mercedes struggling with assignments or failing tests, she would offer to help. Sometimes she would leave extra notes on Mercedes' desk anonymously. Sometimes she would try to include Mercedes in their study groups. Always, she was met with the same dismissive attitude. By their final year at St. Mary's, Grace had become a legend. She held the school record for the highest cumulative grade average in over a decade. Her essay on sustainable development had been published in national youth magazines. Universities were reaching out to her for scholarships. The announcement came during their graduation ceremony. Grace Okoro has been awarded a full scholarship to study civil engineering at the University of Lagos, sponsored by Shell Petroleum Development Company. She will also receive a monthly stipend for living expenses. The applause was thunderous. Teachers who had watched Grace struggle to buy textbooks and pay fees were openly crying. As people were departing from the graduation ceremony, Mercedes looked for Grace and met up with her. "Well, see, Grace, the real world is different from school. Let me see how far your books can take you when you are competing with people who have real connections and power." That was the last conversation they had in years to come. Grace threw herself into her study of civil engineering with characteristic intensity, mastering complex mathematical concepts, understanding structural dynamics, and dreaming of building the infrastructure that would someday be the world design. Grace excelled in every subject: mathematics, calculus, engine drawing, material science, fluid mechanics. She spent countless hours in the laboratory, testing concrete mixtures, analyzing structural failures. She joined the Student Engineering Society and led projects to design low-cost housing solutions for Nigeria's growing urban population. Meanwhile, Mercedes was having a difficult university experience. Her father secured her admission to a prestigious private university through a generous donation. Despite her poor secondary school record, but university coursework proves even more challenging than secondary school, and without her father's direct influence on the lecturers, Mercedes struggled more than ever. She changed majors 3 times, from business administration to international relations to communications, always hoping to find something that required less actual study. She spent most of her times at social events, parties, and shopping trips funded by her father's seemingly unending wealth. Why are you stressing yourself, my baby? Chief Adeleke told his daughter. You don't need to be the best student. You need to just graduate. After that, I have everything arranged. Jobs, connections, opportunities is always waiting for you. Mercedes found this reassuring. While other students worried about their grades and their future, she felt secure in the knowledge that her father's influence would smooth every path for her. Grace became the best graduating student, the top in her class. Final year project, designing innovative low-cost housing system using local materials, had impressed even the external examiners from international engineering firms. The graduation ceremony was another moment of triumph for the Okoro family. Grace began applying for engineering positions with enthusiasm. Her resume was impressive. First-class honors, innovative projects, leadership experience, and glowing recommendations from professors. She was certain that employers were eager to hire someone with her qualifications. But the harsh reality of the job market hit her like a blow. The first rejections came with polite explanations about current hiring freezes or looking for candidates with more experience. Grace remained optimistic, continuing to apply and improving her cover letters based on feedback she received. But as weeks turned into months, a disturbing pattern emerged. At one interview, the engineering manager reviewed her portfolio with obvious admiration. Miss Okoro, your work is exceptional. I would like to have someone like with your skills on our team. Then his voice shifted to a lower tone. Of course, you understand how these positions are highly competitive. Please, perhaps you could discuss this further over dinner. I know a nice hotel where we could, talk privately about your future with our company. Grace stood up immediately. Thank you very much for your time, sir. I don't think this position is right for me. At another firm, the conversation was more direct. Your qualifications are impressive, but we have many qualified candidates. However, if you could contribute to our office renovation funds, perhaps 50,000 naira to show your commitment to joining our team, I'm sure you could find a place for you. Grace walked away from that interview too. Company after company presented her with the same impossible choices: compromise her integrity or remain unemployed. The engineering degree that had once felt like a golden ticket to success now seemed like a comprehensive piece of paper that opened no doors. After a year of unsuccessful job hunting, Grace's small savings were exhausted. Her parents, who had been so proud of her university success, now watched with growing worry as their brilliant daughter remained unemployed. The pressure was enormous. Her younger siblings were still in school. Her mother's small business was struggling, and her father's income from the repair shop was barely enough to cover basic expenses. Grace, maybe you should consider teaching secondary school, her mother suggested. At least it would bring in regular income. Grace considered this option, but teaching positions also seemed to require connections or bribes she often couldn't afford. The entire system seemed designed to exclude people like her, qualified but without influence, capable but without connections. Finally, she got a job as a block carrier in a construction site. The pay was low, the work was physically demanding, but it was honest employment that didn't require compromising her principles. The workers were initially skeptical of a university graduate who had come to work alongside them, but Grace's attitude quickly won them over. This girl is different too, the older workers began saying among themselves. See how she works with her whole heart, even though she has a degree. Grace brought her engineering knowledge to bear on the practical problems she encountered daily. She noticed insufficiencies in the construction process and quietly began implementing improvements. She helped her fellow workers with mathematical calculations needed for mixing cement and concrete properly. She sketched better layouts during breaks that could save both time and material. Mr. Johnson, the site manager, began noticing her. This girl has sense, so he told his assistant. See how the work flows better since she started working here. But Grace carried a heavy burden of shame. Every morning as she put on her construction clothes, she remembered her graduation day, her professor's proud smile, her parents' expectations. Was this really where all her hard work had ended? And her academic excellence, see where it had led? One Tuesday afternoon, the sound of an expensive engine made Grace look up from her work. She saw a sleek black SUV pulling up near her. The car was pristine, clearly expensive, exactly the kind of vehicle she had seen in magazines. Grace's had stopped when she saw who stepped out of the car. Mercedes Adeleke looked exactly like what she had always been destined to become. Wealthy, polished, successful by society standard. Her designer dress probably cost more than Grace earned in 10 months of construction work. Her shoes and jewelry all spoke of a life lived without financial concerns. Well, Mercedes called out loudly as she pulled out her phone and began recording. Look who it is, Grace Okoro. Grace Okoro looked confused. The girl who wouldn't let me rest in secondary school. Mercedes continued. Mercedes, do you need help with calculation? Mercedes, I can help you. Mercedes, book. Look where book has landed you. Always book. The workers turned around to Grace and stopped what they were doing. Grace felt her face burning with embarrassment as she realized what was happening. And look where all these books have led you. Mercedes laughed. An ordinary construction site worker looking for urgent 2K. Tell me, Grace, where are all those first class grades now? Where are all those exceptional skills in writing essays and solving mathematics? Where are all those academics award you're proud of? Ha. Grace felt tears welling up in her eyes. The shock of seeing Mercedes, the public humiliation, the crowd mockery of everything she had worked for. It was overwhelming. She tried to hold back the tears, but they began rolling down before she could say jack. Books didn't help you, and now you want to try tears? Mercedes continues, turning the camera back to herself. Look at my favorite toy, a GLK baby. I don't need to break my back studying anything, just connection, daddy's power, and money. The video was posted instantly across all of Mercedes' social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, her WhatsApp status, and most painfully in their old secondary school group chat, where all their former classmates could see the video. Within hours, the video had circulated and gone viral. Grace's phone buzzed constantly with notifications. Former classmates were sharing the video. Some were cruel with laughter. Others were genuinely shocked at Mercedes' reaction. Within hours, the video was everywhere. The comments were a mixture of reactions. OMG, Mercedes is so savage. This is actually very cruel. Grace was very nice to everyone. Money talks. Book don't pay the bills. Mercedes got no chills. Grace couldn't finish her work for that day. She left the site ashamed. At home, Grace collapsed into her small bed and worked like she hadn't done since her childhood. That night, Grace prayed like never before. God, I don't understand. I've tried to do everything right. I studied hard. I've been honest. I've helped others. Why am I being mocked? Please help me understand your plan for my life. For 3 days, Grace couldn't bring herself to return to her construction site work. Her site manager, Mr. Johnson, called repeatedly. Grace was one of his most reliable workers, and her sudden absence was causing real problems on the site. But Grace couldn't face the world. She couldn't bear the shame. On the third day, her younger brother found her phone while looking for something under the mattress. "Sister Grace, look, all these missed calls, 59 missed calls just from one number." Grace's heart sank with guilt. She had abandoned her responsibilities, something she had never done before. Despite her emotional turmoil and sense of duty, she got dressed and hurried quickly to the site. Mr. Johnson spotted her immediately and rushed over, his face a mixture of relief and urgency. "Grace, thank God you are here. You nearly got me fired. The developers of this site have been asking of you non-stop for 3 days." Grace's stomach dropped. Had her absence caused any major problems? Had she somehow damaged the project by not being here? "Sir, did I do something wrong?" she asked fearfully. "Wrong?" Mr. Johnson laughed. "My dear, they saw your improvements on the sheer strength of the decking system. Since then, they've been asking questions about you constantly. Quick, wear my jacket. Go meet them immediately in the site office now." The site office was filled with the kind of people Grace had only seen from a distance. She felt completely out of place among their business suits and expensive accessories. "Miss Okoro," the lead developer said, extending his hand. "We've been looking for everywhere for you. Please have a seat." What followed was the most surreal conversation of Grace's life. These successful business people weren't interested in her connections or her family's social status. They wanted to know about her specific contribution to the construction project, her understanding of structural engineering principles, her ideas for improving efficiency and safety. "Your modifications to our foundation design saved us both time and energy," one of the executives explained. "Your safety protocols has reduced accidents on our site by 40%. The quality of work has improved dramatically since we started implementing your methods." Another executive leaned forward. "Ms. Okoro, we've reviewed your university records, first-class honors in civil engineering, innovative final year projects, outstanding recommendations. We want to know why someone with your qualification is working as ordinary laborer." Grace honestly explained her job search experiences, the corruption, the inappropriate advances, the impossible choice between integrity and employment. The executive exchanged meaningful glances. "We've been looking for someone exactly like you," the lead developer said. "Someone with both theoretical knowledge and practical experience. Someone who understands how things should work and how they actually work. We want to offer you a position as a site manager, overseeing multiple projects across Lagos." Grace couldn't believe what she was hearing. The salary mentioned was triple what she has ever earned in her life. "There is one condition," the lead developer added with a smile. "We will need you to implement your safety and efficiency methods across all our construction sites in Lagos. Are you up for that challenge?" "Sir, I've been preparing for this challenge all my life." Grace threw herself into her new role with characteristic dedication and intelligence. She wasn't just managing construction sites, she was revolutionizing them. Her unique combination of theoretical engineering knowledge and hands-on construction experience gave her insights that purely academic or purely practical managers lacked. She developed new construction techniques that reduced material waste by 35%. Her safety protocols became the industry standard, dramatically reducing workplace accidents. She created training programs that help skilled laborers advance to supervisory positions, sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it. Word of Grace's innovation spread through Lagos construction industry. Other companies tried to recruit her. Professional engineering associations invited her to speak at conferences. Her methods were studied by university students and implemented by major construction firms. Within 2 years, Grace had been promoted to regional construction manager, overseeing many infrastructure projects across Lagos State. She was designing the bridges, buildings, and roads that served cities for generations to come. The girl who had once mixed cement was now signing contracts for projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Meanwhile, in the gleaming Victoria Island towers, Mercedes' seemingly perfect world was beginning to crumble. Chief Adeleke, who built his business empire and political connections that seemed permanent and unshakable, but political winds changed quickly. A new administration came into power with a mandate to fight corruption and reduce influence of politically connected businessmen one by one. His companies were investigated for corruption, tax evasion, and fraudulent practices, his assets frozen. While authorities tried to trace the source of his wealth, the man who had seemed untouchable was not facing criminal charges that could result in decades of imprisonment. Mercedes watched helplessly as her world of privilege collapsed around her. The luxurious family house was seized by banks to pay debts. The fleet of expensive cars were sold at auction. The designer jewelries and accessories that once defined identity were liquidated to pay legal fees. Her friends who had once flocked around her at parties and shopping sprees suddenly became unavailable when she needed support. The social circles that had once welcomed her as wealthy daughter of Chief Adeleke now treated her as a reminder of scandal and disgrace. Most devastating of all, watching her father's health deteriorate under stress, Chief Adeleke suffered massive heart attack and was hospitalized, requiring expensive life support treatment that their frozen assets couldn't afford. Mercedes' mother sold everything she had, her wedding ring, her personal jewelry, even clothes she treasured for years, to keep her husband alive. For the first time in her life, Mercedes faced poverty. She had never worked a day in her life, had never had remarkable skills, and possessed no savings of her own. The university degree she barely earned was in a field she never understood from courses she never attended. Desperate for help, she started buying clothes on credit, thrift clothes on credit from wholesalers, sell them in the local market, and use the small profits to pay back her suppliers. Grace Okoro walked through Balogun market. She saw Mercedes. Mercedes' first instinct was to hide. The memory of her cruel video from years ago flooded her mind, but there was nowhere to hide in the small market. Grace had already spotted her. Mercedes, is that really you? Grace, Mercedes broke down in tears. Without hesitation, Grace wrapped her arms around her former classmate and held her close as she sobbed. "I'm sorry, Grace," Mercedes cried. "I was so cruel to you. I was wrong about everything. I don't deserve your kindness." Grace held her tighter. "Well, we all make mistakes, Mercedes. What matters is that we learn from them." Over the next few hours, Grace listened as Mercedes told her the complete story: her fall from grace, her father's illness, her family's financial ruin, and friends who had abandoned her in her desperate time of need. Grace, before leaving, made several purchases from Mercedes' store, paying generously for items she didn't really need. Over the following weeks, Grace quietly helped Mercedes. She paid off Mercedes' outstanding debt to her suppliers. She also called people who knew about the business to teach Mercedes and paid them. She also started a proper thrift business for Mercedes. Most importantly, Grace arranged for Mercedes' father to receive better medical care at a fraction of the cost. Through her network of successful professionals, she found doctors who were willing to provide quality treatment based on medical need rather than ability to pay immediately. Mercedes watched all this with weary eyes. She got back to her cramped room, stood up in front of her ring light. "My name is Mercedes Adeleke," she began. Some of you may remember a video I posted several years ago where I cruelly mocked a former classmate who was working at a construction site. The woman's name is Grace. I want to publicly apologize to Grace and to everyone who witnessed my shameful behavior. In this my time of need, Grace had every right to turn her back on me, to take revenge for how I treated her. Instead, she showed me kindness I didn't deserve. She taught me that true success isn't about what you had. She developed a business for me, paid off my outstanding debt, and even my father's health video. Please, Grace, if you see this, I'm so sorry. And to everyone everyone who witnessed that video, I am so sorry. That was very cruel of me. The video went viral, but for completely different reason. People were moved by Mercedes's humility and Grace's grace. Comments poured in. This is what real growth looks like. Grace is the kind of person we should all aspire to be. Mercedes, it takes courage to admit your mistakes publicly. Respect. Well, here comes the end of the story. What do you think? Should Grace have helped Mercedes? Should Grace have taken revenge? How do we balance holding people accountable for their actions with giving them opportunities to grow and change? Share with me your thoughts on this story. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so by now. Like, share your thoughts on this story in the comment section. Share to your family and friends. Till I bring you another interesting African story, God bless you.